I get to kick off the first one of the seven studies we're going to do over the next couple weeks, 7 weeks, about I am. And as Jim said this morning, the first one is about the I am, the bread of life. So this is a 7-part series. I'm not doing all 7 this morning. Do 3 of them. We'll stop, get some food. There'll be one interlude. It's kind of like Gone with the Wind. It'll be a little bit going. So growing up, I was my brother and I were really big comic book geeks. Now I will say this, Shane was way worse than I was. I still had friends and could look people in the eyes. But we were pretty big comic book geeks. Not the type that would get the comics and keep them in nice plastic containers and keep them in a cool, dark area, and by that, like maintain some semblance of value in those. No, we'd get them and we'd read them and read them again and destroy them and have no value. Shane has now spent all of Sam and Beth's college education recreating that by trying to get the nice ones and keeping them in boxes. But we would spend days, weeks, whatever you want, debating the different comic book characters, and particularly around, how powerful the Hulk is, and willing to fight anybody to the death who would try to challenge us that the Hulk is the most powerful of all the superheroes. It's true and it's fact. So I'll just let you guys know that. So when the Marvel movies started coming out, this is a long time ago now. Like, kids, you won't remember it, but movies used to be made that weren't just Marvel. I promise. It really happened. But when the Marvel movies started coming out, Shane and I were pretty excited. We're like, this is going to be awesome. Like, how are they going to do this? How are they going to do the Hulk? How are they going to do Spider-Man? Like, this is going to be amazing. And one of the things we talked about is like, how are they going to do like the really powerful comic book characters? Not just the Hulk and Spider-Man, but like there's an entire realm that exists they're called the Beyonder, and they're called the Titans. And there's one that's actually called the One Above All. So what we all know about comic book characters are super original in the way they name things. Spider-Man is, well, a man who's kind of a spider. Superman, he's a Superman. Iron Man is a guy who's in iron. The Hulk is, well, very large. Ant-Man controls ants and is the size of an ant. So they're never that creative when they named him. So the name, the One Above All, kind of gives you what the description is. He's the one above all. Now, little side trivia for you in case it ever comes up and you need this for a trivia contest. The One Above All is actually in the comics, only appears twice, because he's too powerful. You can't have him come in and all that. And he's drawn as Stan Lee, who is the creator of the Marvel Universe. In case you guys ever need to know that, just put that away. But the One Above All is, as we would think about it, God. He's the most powerful, he controls everything. He comes in and out of the Marvel Universe and just kind of doesn't actually take an active role. But you could argue in Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 13, that God is both equally as uncreative, but also as descriptive when Moses asks him, what do I call you? Starting in verse 13, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. That is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Put yourself in Moses' shoes real fast. You're asking God, who's asking you to do what seems to be the impossible, to go to the Israelites and convey his message and to lead them and take them out of captivity. Well, when they ask me what I call you, what do I call you? Now, it's important to think about the context of the time right now. Polytheism is the ruling way of doing things. Polytheism means a lot of gods. When you have a lot of gods, you got to name them, or else you get really confused, right? So he's like, what do I call you? And God says, you call me I am. This became a very, very, very important phrase to the Israelites. This became the bedrock of how they knew God. This is the first true introduction the Israelites had to God. And when they said, well, who's sending you to him? Moses is like, calls himself I am. And they're like, I am? I am what? He's like, yeah, exactly. I am everything. He is the I am. This declaration then morphed or became closely linked, I had to look this word up, Christian gave me this word, to the tetragrammaton. It's a thing. It basically just means Yahweh. And I think they came up with the word tetragrammaton because Yahweh is not really a word, but it's not really a name either. So they called it a tetragrammaton. Is that how it came up? Is that why it's that way? All right. But it became Yahweh. For those who don't know how to spell Yahweh, it's YHWH. And that's what the Israelites referred to as God. That's what we often think of when we think of the name God. And other ways of saying it is Jehovah or whatever you may say. But his name of the nameless God became Yahweh. This became not just his name, but a covenant throughout all the Hebrew scriptures. The name conveyed God's self-existence, his eternity, or his eternality, his unchanging faithfulness, his strength, his commitment, his promises. It became the I am. With this, Yahweh became inseparable from who he is and his promises. As Gary read this morning, Isaiah chapter 45, starting in verse 5, I am the Lord, and there is no other. Apart from me, there is no God. I will strengthen you, though you have not acknowledged me. He's starting there by the categorical statement, I am the Lord and the only God. And then he says, I am your strength. He goes on to say, so that from the rising of the sun to the place of its setting, people may know that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is no other. I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. This is who he's saying he is. He is saying, I am. Disaster, peace, prosperity, strength. I am. The reason why this matters is Yahweh, I am. That phrase, I am, became inseparable from the all-powerful God, the all-powerful Lord within the Jewish world. It got to the point where you didn't even say it. You didn't even mention Yahweh. You didn't mention his name because you were not worthy of it. It became something they started saying Lord instead. So it became something that became so holy in nature that people are afraid to say it. I bring all this to you because the way Jesus introduces himself is a true revolutionary statement in John. The way he is introduced to the people that he is talking to at that time would make everybody's hair curl. Because they ask, who are you? They ask, what are you? And in John chapter 8, he says the absolute, I am. This is not, what we're going to talk about for the next couple of weeks, these are not metaphors. This is a statement of his divinity. This is his categorical claim that he is God. And he's saying it in a very descriptive way, or a very specific way, that the people he's talking to would understand when he says, I am. We'll talk about this a little bit when we get into it, but when he uses the statement in John chapter 8, John chapter 8, verse 58, before Abraham was, I am. It's a very interesting. He doesn't say I was. It's not a statement of I've been here forever. It's not a statement of I've been here since the beginning, as often we think it is. But he's saying I am in a very specific way. Because what he's echoing Exodus chapter 3. The first time Moses asked God, what is your name? He says, I am. This time Jesus is introducing himself as saying, I am. And you can tell by how impactful that was, because the next verse, the Jewish people respond the way you would think to somebody who came up and said, I am the I am. They pick up a bunch of stones and they're about to stone him. It's infuriating. It's a fire starter. It's revolutionary. Secondarily, he goes through, and this is what we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks, of not just the absolute I am, but predictive I am statements. And we're going to talk about each one of these. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the truth and the life. And I am the true vine. Again, these statements of I am are not just describing what he does. They're not just mere metaphors, but they are defining and revealing who he is. These are literal descriptions of his character, not just metaphors about what he does or what he's promising or describing who he is. So as we think about this next couple weeks, think about it through that light. Think about how revolutionary this statement that Jesus Christ says when he calls himself the I am. All right, so This morning I want to talk about I am the bread of life. Again, it's not lost on me, and either the irony or maybe it was intentional by Christian. I said he's organized, that he gave me this one, since every time I talk to you guys at a sermon, it could be basically an infomercial for Kathy's bread that we have at the Lord's Supper. It's like my favorite thing in the world. But it's also a discussion about how Jesus Christ is the bread of life. When he says this, he's revealing himself as the divine source of true and lasting satisfaction, offering eternal life to all who believe in him. It's a call to us, or to him who is listening to him, to recognize that spiritual hunger cannot be satisfied by other things. We have a hole. I mean, you hear this analogy. It's a good analogy. We have a hole in our hearts, and the only thing that can fill it is God. It's a God-sized hole. And this is what Jesus is saying when he calls himself the bread of life. He is the satisfier. He is that which gives us the nutrition and sustenance we need. John chapter 6, verse 35, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. If that was my phone, as Denver knows, my boss calls me and does all his work from 11 to noon Eastern. So if that's my phone, I'm sorry. Wasn't? Great. Somebody else then feels bad, not me. When he's saying this, whoever comes to me will not hunger, whoever comes to me will not thirst. He's using very visceral, physical demands. Anybody here ever been hungry? And I don't mean like Jim won't stop talking and David's deviled eggs are out in the foyer hungry. I mean like real hunger. So Rex back there, he just graduated from Ranger School. Ranger School is one of the few things you can do by choice, I guess, to really, really get hungry. And we were talking last night about, Rex would be talking about how he was just daydreaming about having the biggest meal as he was walking his, 57th mile of the day while carrying a bunch of ammo. That is so true. If you've ever been truly hungry, like where your body is you're just not craving, but you need food, or thirsty, it's all you can think about. It is all encompassing. And you will literally do anything for it. Hunger is an incredibly driving emotion and need that our body feels. So when Jesus says, I am the bread of life, what he's saying is, I am that which satisfies your most basic, visceral, fundamental needs. The context of what's happening in John 6 here really matters. Think about biblical times, and then put it in contrast to what we have now. There's a reason why God gave the manna to the Israelites on a daily basis. A, it reminded them who was protecting them, but B, it wasn't actually daily. There was one day they didn't get it, right? The Sabbath day. And they had to go gather it and save it. But what else is going on in biblical times? We don't have this awesome thing called refrigeration. You can't store food unless you salt it, and it tastes bad. But you can't store massive amounts of food. There's no ability to go to Chipotle and pick up a burrito. There's no McDonald's. We often take for granted in today's world how easily accessible food is, and how easily accessible and taken for granted the food's just always there. Even in our environment, if you don't have a lot of food, it doesn't change the fact that it is going to be preserved. They didn't have refrigerators to let you keep eating the kind of questionable Chinese food over an 11-day period. You just kind of keep on putting it back in there and looking it back and be like, no, it's fine, right? They had to eat what they had. And each day was a daily struggle about thinking about where that food is going to come from. So right before this, in John chapter 6, 1 through 15, Jesus is giving a very important lesson, but he also does what? Does anybody know? You guys all do, you just don't want to talk because this is a lesson, not a class. I get it. He feeds 5,000 with bread and fish. 5,000 people who had come, and the entire time he's talking, you can see the apostles. The apostles are pretty good at this. They're like, hey, Jesus, they really like what you're saying, but that guy's hungry, and that guy is thinking about food, and that little kid's crying because he's hungry, and God's like, feed him. Jesus is like, feed him. Like, where? He's like, right, that basket, give him food. What did your mom always tell you about stray cats? If you feed them, they keep coming back. So what happens after Jesus feeds these 5,000? he escapes, right? He goes to the other side of the body of water. And what do? They chase him down. Now, is it because he gave a really good lesson? Sure. But people don't go to the other side of water because of really good lessons. And he actually confronts them about this in verse 26. He just goes, you guys came here because I hooked you up with a bunch of food. And you just want more food. And that's when he says, I am the bread of life. I am what matters. And then the comparison that happens later on in John, starting in verse 30, the crowd asks for a sign. Basically saying, comparing Jesus to Moses, saying, well, Moses gave the ancestors manna, bread from heaven in the desert. Give us a sign. Give us another meal. What does Jesus say to them? It's awesome. What Jesus then turns around and says to them when he says, I am the bread of life, he goes, Moses didn't give you guys food. Moses didn't give your ancestors manna. God did. And I am that God. I am that manna. It's a very powerful statement in that context. Because he's not saying, I am the Son of God, although he is. He's not saying I'm a man who's become God, which he is. He is saying in that statement, I am the one who gave you that bread. Not your ancestor, not Moses. Me. And I am that bread. It's incredibly impactful. It's an incredibly strong statement. This statement asserts that he alone sustains life. We do this all the time. The Israelites and the Jewish people do it a lot as well. Patriarchal, I won't say worship, but honor is part of society. In the Jewish community, Moses, Abraham, these are like gargantuan names. Names that have driven and that distill respect and a little bit of fear in everybody. And what he's saying here is like, dude, stop thinking about Moses. Focus on me. I alone sustain life. I alone offer you the nourishment that leads to satisfaction and that satisfies your needs. The promise that whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst, emphasizes that access to this life is through faith, not effort. You don't earn it, but you come to me in faith, highlighting two things. An invitation, come to me, but also a dependence. In order to be satisfied, in order to have this life, you must stay with me. It's a very strong statement. The bread of life is not free. It's gracefully bestowed upon us by coming to him. The declaration is simultaneously comforting and confrontational, as I just kind of alluded to. It assures that if you trust in him, if you answer the calling, and if you reorient your pursuits to Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone, then you're going to be taken care of. That's a mission statement and a promise, all wrapped up in one thing. The bread of life metaphor communicates what it takes to have spiritual life. To be sustained and provided nutrition, and to live requires us to go to God in Jesus only. When he declared the I am, the bread of life, he is saying, God and the bread that sustains you. In one very succinct, pithy statement. So this morning I ask you, think about your life. What are you trying to fulfill yourself with? What are you trying to satisfy yourself with that's not Jesus Christ? I promise you're going to be hungry. I promise you it's not going to satisfy it. And I promise you that hunger and that lack of satisfaction, not a word, will distract you from what actually is that which satisfies you, which is Jesus.